Hey everybody, Kyle here with Spicer Designs. Today's video I have something really cool to show you. It's so cool, frankly, it makes me sick. It's that cool. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, son of a I thought I muted my phone. Tell you what, those Ring doorbells are nice. They're freaking annoying. And everyone has the same ringtone, so anytime you hear it go off, you think it's yours. And if we have someone over, and theirs goes off, then our dogs go nuts. I'm sure this is very relatable for everybody. All right, before I show you this new thing, it's cool, but it's not that cool. I kind of oversold it there. I want to show you something else. My neighbor had a little accident the other day, and he freaking torched his whole yard. All right, so you can see here, my next door neighbor's yard really wasn't too affected. It got pretty close to his pond back there. It mostly got the neighbor next to him. This is just a good little reminder, especially as we get into spring cleanup season. You might be burning some leaves or some understory in your woods. Be extremely cautious. The wind can change, the wind can pick up, and things can get out of hand really quick. And that's kind of what happened here. My neighbor was actually doing some tilling out by his garden. He got done tilling, he went inside, and he thinks that his tiller backfired or something, or maybe the heat from it was enough to ignite the grass, which was very dry. It was a certain kind of grass, and it just took off like wildfire, literally. Fire department ended up coming out and putting the fire out. No major damage. Everyone was okay. So got away lucky on this one. Moral of the story, if you're gonna have a fire, make sure you're prepared. Make sure there's no wind. Have a plan. You can never be too cautious. All right, back to the point of the video. Now, when I show you this, just be open-minded, because I have something cool to show you that I'm gonna use this with. That made no sense. Yes, it's a power station, but the video is not all about power stations. We're gonna be talking about something else. I do work with another brand. I've mostly been covering the larger ones, and to be honest, I've always wanted a smaller, more portable one for just light duty things around the property. A lot of people have been talking about EcoFlow in the comments, so I thought I'd give it a try. So this is EcoFlow's newest Delta 3. It's got ladybugs all over it, or Japanese beetles, as I was corrected. First thoughts, this thing is really pretty nice. I would say it's like the perfect size for miscellaneous use around the property. I could throw it on the golf cart, we could take it camping, all kinds of scenarios. It's actually very light. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this on a project that I've been working on off camera. Most of you know I'm an electrician by trade. We have a good friend down here that just built a pole barn, and I still have to trench a feed to the pole barn. So I wired this thing for them. It's really muddy. The conditions aren't great to trench yet. They have garage door openers, lights. They have things they want to do in this new pole barn, and they just can't do it yet because there's no power. So I'm going to use this EcoFlow Delta 3 to temporarily power the barn. And, I know I disappeared, just to prolong the battery, because this thing's going to be running the barn for day in, day out for a little bit. Maybe a week or two. They sent a portable solar panel with it as well. As they're using power, it could be charging at the same time and just make that battery life last a little bit longer. And these are 220 watt bifacial portable solar panels. If you're not familiar with what bifacial is, that means it can actually collect sunlight from both sides of the solar panel. I'm not sure if I'll be able to utilize that or not, but who really gives a shit? Now, I did charge this thing up last night, just with a little 120 volt power cord here. I mean, you can see it's not gigantic. On the back side, we've got our inputs for the solar charging. You can add additional batteries to this and stack them so you can get more battery capacity. And then we have our 120 volt charger port right there. Anyways, it's got all the outputs you could possibly think of on this thing. And we have an update. The Keystone girl pulled through. She finally got me some Keystone to stock up in my new Iron Mountain refrigeration cooler. This thing is freaking awesome. It's so nice to have in the shop. Great company. I will leave links for them down in the description as well. All right, we're all loaded up. My plan is to show you this pole barn that I've wired. It's already done. I'd like to show you some of the techniques that I use when I'm wiring a pole barn. Everybody does it different. I am extremely anal, so the way I do it takes more time, but it looks fantastic when it's done. And to me, that's what it's all about, the finished product. So let's take a cruise over there, and I'll show you what I've been working on off camera. Here is the barn that I've already wired. It is roughly 30 foot deep by 32 foot wide, I think. You can see the panel there in the back corner. And we have two overhead garage doors with door openers that they cannot use because the panel that I installed has no power coming to it. Eventually I'll be piping out the bottom of this, stubbing it outside, and trenching over to the house to pick up power, but right now we've got nothing. I've got all my circuits ran in here. Everything is terminated and landed on the breakers. We just need some power. All of the switches are in, outlets, all the lights. There's 8 LEDs in here, but we'll go over more of that here in just a minute. I want to get this thing temporarily powered up. We can get the lights on, and then I'll kind of show you some of the techniques that I use when I'm wiring a pole barn. All right, here is the plan. Tucked away in this corner, I have a GFI. I have a 20 amp circuit that feeds this, and then I have a couple other outlets that are downloaded off of this GFI. I also have a feed that stubs outside and feeds like a little shed, or I don't know what you call it. It's a small building, but we're going to utilize that as well. So this is where I want to put the power station. Then what I'm going to do is take this heavy duty appliance cord right here. I'm going to hardwire it into this outlet. I'll tap into that 20 amp circuit. Essentially what that'll do is turn this entire barn into a giant appliance that I will plug into the power station. And then that 20 amp breaker that feeds that will temporarily become the main for the barn. I can jumper the 2 phases because there are no 240 volt circuits in here, so we only need 120. So I could temporarily feed both buses with that 120 volt circuit, and we can then power the entire barn. Obviously we can't put a huge load on it, but all it is lights and openers. They're not going to be plugging any fridges in here yet. It should work out pretty well, but again, just temporary. So let's not come up with a bunch of hypothetical scenarios where someone can get hurt or whatever. There's nothing that can backfeed anywhere. This is totally safe to do. Ideally, you should know what the hell you're doing. I did just do a little bit of reorganizing with my Milwaukee pack-out stuff. I picked another one of these smaller organizers up from Home Depot. Got all of my 832s, 632s, all of my electrical related supplies in here. Makes it convenient. And I picked up this new case. I mean, these things are getting freaking expensive. I think this one was like 60 bucks. But I added some foam in here so I could put my labeler in there. And I've got a drill bit set. Most people probably have one of these with half the bits missing. You just buy a new one. That goes in there real nice. And then I picked up a hole saw kit. This is pretty handy. All the different hole saws that you need, and arbors, more drill bits. So this is, son of a the semis. So this is kind of like my drill bit and tip organizer. Holy crap. They live like right on the road. Put in a little take-all right here. Some of you might be wondering, why don't you use the plastic boxes for Romex? Well, because they're pieces of shit. That's why. One thing you do have to keep in mind when you're installing metal boxes is you do need to loop your ground and stab the back of the box so the box is grounded. You still need to ground the device as well when using a Garvin cover. I know the light sucks right now because we have no light. I'm just going to land these right on the compression screw here for the line side of this GFI. Normally I would do pigtails, but I'm not going to rewire this entire thing just because this is temporary. Also should not use an impact on devices. Back in it goes. Alright, there we go. We just turned our pole barn into a giant appliance or accessory, whatever you want to call it. Now all we have to do is plug this in to the EcoFlow Delta 3. We should have lights. And it does have a capacity of 1024 kilowatt hours and an 1800 watt output. Believe it or not, that's quite a bit of juice for that little thing. Let's turn it on. There we go. All right, we're at 98%. The other great thing about these Delta 3s is they are claiming them to be extremely quiet. We will find out. All right, let's plug this sucker in. All right, we're plugged in. Now I'm going to turn on the AC output, and nothing should turn on because all the breakers are off. All right, I heard a click. Let's go check for voltage. It's got all kinds of fancy features: X-Guard, X-Boost, Xtreme, fast charging without damaging the battery. That is one thing I have been reading about with that Delta 3 is the charging is extremely fast. There's multiple options to charge it, and all of the options were under 2 hours to charge it 100%. That's pretty damn good, really. Pretty impressive stuff. What else we got here? I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about this thing because I don't. Yeah, so AC charging, 1500 watt AC input, powered by Xtreme. It charges up to 100% in 56 minutes. That's really fast. Faster than other brands. Solar charging, which we are going to be using, for 1 kilowatt hour, 36% faster than the industry standard, charging up to 100% in 70 minutes. That's quick. It does have an app, of course, like everything. All right, let's see if we got voltage here. Enough dicking around. There you are. We're gonna turn this one on. Make sure that we have power on both bus bars. I did already install a jumper from each phase to phase on the main breaker, and I did turn the main breaker on so that they would have continuity. Again, there's nothing feeding this panel. There's no danger here. It's a completely isolated system at this moment. Main is on 119.8, 119.8. And if you go phase to phase, it's gonna be 0 because there's the same potential. There's no 240 volt output on that Delta 3. Now, let's turn on some circuits. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can't turn on those. That would be bad. So I could turn on. I just heard a door opener. Well, that should be both door openers because they're on the same circuit. We have lights. Would you look at that? Things just got a whole lot brighter. I'm just surprised that my wiring actually worked. All right, we've got outlet, outlet, outlet. That was the outside outlet. So I can go around and reset all these GFIs, plug test them, make sure they're all working the way they're supposed to. I want to see how much output this is using with the lights right now. So we have 8 4-foot LED fixtures on at this moment, and I think each one of them draws 1/3 of an amp apiece. 294 watts, and it's saying if we left these on, it'll run for 3.1 hours. That's not bad. All right, first GFI, the one I'm plugged into. Reset it. It's reading the open ground. So essentially, I have an open ground, and I know why. It's because this is a sub panel. It is not bonded, and I don't have it hooked up to the actual utility source yet. So it's seeing an open ground. If I were to put that bonding screw in here, I would then have a ground. So I actually think I'm gonna do that temporarily till I get the utility source hooked up. Again, it's all temporary, just so they could use the door openers and have some lights. Make sure that our 3-way lights are working the way they're supposed to. Looks good. Looks good. I did go ahead and throw the bonding screw in there because it was reading open ground, and you can see it is now correct. Again, that's just temporary. I'll pull it back out. I do have a separate ground bus because it is a sub panel, or will be a sub panel. All right, now I've been running this thing for about 15 minutes. We're at 92%. We're still pulling about 300 watts. I want to go ahead and hook up the solar panels to this thing and see what kind of bump we get, what kind of input charging that we can start getting just from those solar panels. 220 watts, not a lot, but it's a lot for being portable. Oh, comes in a nice EcoFlow carrying case. Here's the other side of the building where I stubbed that conduit through. You can see it stubs out, goes down. I buried it, comes back up, and goes into this little building behind me. I just have two 20 amp circuits going in there, just like a storage shed. I'm hoping that I can fit this XT60 connector through here because I want to put the solar panels on the other side of this fence. Oh my God, it fits. That is one thing I was worried about. That's gonna work perfect. All right, we are on the south side of the building. Getting decent sunlight, but the freaking tree's blocking it. 1123. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with right here. They get a lot of wind out here too. All right, I'm gonna plug these in. They only plug in one way. We're actually getting pretty good sunlight right now. Let's go see how much input we're actually getting from these things. All right, there is our XT60. We're still using 292 watts. We're at 85%, and it's saying it's gonna last 2.7 hours. We have no input. Let's see what happens. Another thing I can tell you is this thing is making no noise at all. All right, we are inputting a whopping 64 watts. We've now increased to 3.3 hours. I must not be getting as much sunlight as I thought I was. I'll check back on this before I leave, and we can see if it possibly increased at all. Now we've all seen these power stations. They're all over YouTube. They all pretty much do the same thing, but every company's trying to outdo each other. The Delta 3 Plus is pretty nice, and you can add expansion batteries onto it to get a total output of like 5 kilowatt hours. And in order to do that, you would need 2 expansion battery packs for it. It also has a time of use mode. You can use the app. You can set certain time parameters in there for it to charge and discharge, which is a nice feature. It doesn't output 240 volts. That thing's ideal for like using it as a UPS. If you have an outage and you need to plug in your fridge or something, that kind of unit is going to get you by. Plus it's portable. And for my personal situation, I'm able to use it to temporarily get the customer power so they can use their door openers, their lights. They can start organizing their brand new barn, because it's still going to be another 2 to 3 weeks before I get power to this thing. So you never know what situation you're going to need one of these things. They're just handy to have around. Freaking semi. Oh, that was a concrete truck. But I haven't opened the garage door yet. Let's see what happens. I don't even know if they set all of the open close limits on this. All right, how much power are we using? I'm gonna go check it real quick. Oh, that thing doesn't use crap. All right, that was easy. Opener works. What the heck? Oh, the freaking rope. Stupid. All right, now I want to show you some of the techniques that I use when I'm wiring a pole barn. Lots of different ways to do it. Maybe not everyone agrees. Again, I am in Indiana. Indiana adopts 2008 National Electric Code. So where you live, it may be different. Either way, no one cares. All right, just to be clear, this is not a how-to video. Not telling anybody how to do anything. If you don't know basic wiring, you don't feel comfortable, stay the hell away from it. Hire a professional. If you are going to work on it and you do have some DIY skill or knowledge, shut all the power off, take every safety precaution possible. All I'm going to do is share some tips and pointers if you're willing and able to take on a project like this yourself. All right, first tip, when I trim out a panel, this is just the way that I do it. You can have the main on bottom or the top. Typically you see it on top. I usually orient it according to which way I'm bringing the feed in from, which in this situation, it'll be from the bottom. I like to land all my grounds first. This is a sub panel, so we have a separate ground bus. I like to bring my neutrals in the back second, and then I'll bring all of my hots in just slightly away from them. It just makes it a little easier, especially in these homeline panels, if you ever want to add a circuit. And I started all my breakers at the bottom because most situations, new circuits would be brought in from the top, which would then allow you nice open space to land all of the additional circuits needed. The other thing is, make sure that your wires are set back far enough, because when you put those panel screws in, the last thing you want is one of those screws hitting one of those hot conductors. That will lead to a dead short and a dirty pair of undies. Ask me how I know. So being that this is now energized, I am going to throw that panel cover on temporarily. I'll get it all labeled, and I'm going to go ahead and label all of these outlets now. All right, I have everything labeled, covers on. We're going to start right here at the panel. So I have 8 circuits total. I have the garage door openers on their own circuit, south wall outlets, east wall outlets, west wall outlets, and some of those are in the north. I've got 220 amps going to that small little building out back, so they do have the option to have 240 volt out there at 20 amps. I have a GFI right here that goes outside, that's on its own circuit, and then all of the lights, interior and exterior. They are all LED, and just these alone being on by themselves are only pulling 300 watts. Very little draw on the lighting circuit, inside and out, all combined. That is the nice thing about LEDs. And I kept the garage door outlets dedicated just for these 2 openers. That way, if there's any kind of interference or if the door is opening, I don't want the lights flickering. You just avoid all of that by dedicating those circuits. And as far as the utility receptacles go throughout the barn, that's all going to be preference. Ideally, it's nice to have one on every post, but it really all depends on what they're going to use the space for and any other essentials that they're going to need plugged in all the time. I know they're going to be putting a freezer in somewhere over here. I know they have a fridge that they're going to plug in. The other outlets may never get touched, it's hard to say, but they have options. As far as the lighting goes, we have the main entry door right here. You're going to come in, turn on the light switch, that is the closest switch right there. I did not put these openers there. The switch for the interior lights all throughout here is also 3-wayed from the back doors. So no matter what entrance they come in, they have an option to turn on these interior lights. That's the way it obviously should be. Then we have the front coach lights. I just labeled them front lights, just a single pole switch, and those go to these coach lights right here. Now when you're wiring a barn or anything with that ribbed steel, you can get actual center. You really need to have like a block installed. Ideally when they're putting the sheet metal on, that's when you would do that. But in most cases, you're just going to find the flat area between those ribs that is closest to center. So it is just slightly off, but no one will ever notice it unless they come out here and measure. And if they do, probably just ask them to leave. The switch up here, I like to separate them. I didn't want to install the 3 gang because they look kind of stupid and they don't have a Garvin cover for the 3 gangs. So I installed the gable light just a little bit higher. This is a light that you may or may not want to turn on accidentally. There is a photo cell on it, so no matter what, it won't be on all day. It'll only be from dusk to dawn. So this is for the north gable. And that is that LED wall pack right there. It's going to be really nice to light up this whole area in here where they have their garbage cans and the sidewalk. And it's really going to light up the driveway area too. Same concept at the back door. I have another light switch up higher, you can see. I have another wall pack up in that gable as well on the outside. And there's a coach light on the outside of that door too. And I will show you the way I like to do this. A lot of times, what people will do is they'll just mount the coach light right to the steel or one of the girts, and they'll just try to make the splice up inside of the actual fixture on the outside of the building. I actually like to cut a box in. So there is a square round mud ring on this, an actual box where you can have your splice contained. In my opinion, that is the right way to do it. And like I mentioned before, I prefer using metal boxes. They're just way more robust. If something falls on this, it's not going to just smash into a bunch of pieces like the plastic ones. You have more room for wire fill. And if you needed to relocate it or move it, you can just unscrew it and move it. You don't have to try to pry the nails out and destroy the box while you're doing it. And I do the same thing with my exterior GFIs. I have a box. Another thing to keep in mind when you're installing your covers and your light fixtures, I always put caulk on the top side of the fixture and the top side of the outlet. No matter what you do, you're going to get some moisture in there and it'll just fry that GFI. As far as running all of my Romex, I always make sure that it lays nice and flat. I'll use more straps if I need to, just so it all stays in place the way it should. I don't want to be running this cable and have it twisting and turning, just looking like absolute dog shit. Anytime you can double stack, take advantage of that. It just looks cleaner. You don't really want to have any more than 2 stacked when you're using these Romex staples. That's why I have 3 right here. And basically all the drops that I have coming down to these outlets, the only part where you see it is right here. I'm coming in the back of this box. I run it up toward the back of that post, and then I'll come up onto that 3rd girt, which is right there at the top of the windows and pretty much the top of the doors. And I'll run the wiring right on top of that all the way around. So the easy thing to do would be to come out and just run it right here, and you could run it straight across to the other outlet. But maybe they want to build a workbench or something. This is just too accessible. It's within reach. I prefer to go up a couple. Yes, you have to work off a ladder. Yeah, you're going to use more wire, but you don't see it, and it's a little bit more protected up there. And I'll give you one more thing to think about. I think this makes a huge difference. If you were to walk into this building from the dominant, most used door, which is this one right here, we're going to step out. So as we walk into the pole barn, if you look at all these lights and all the outlets, it almost looks like none of it's wired, because I put all of the wire on the less dominant side of the trusses just for a cleaner look, and it does look way cleaner. So if you look at any one of these lights, I'm going to shut this off so we can see it better. If you look at any one of these lights, this is the dominant side that you would see when you first walk in. All you can see is that little bit of wire that comes out of it. We'll go on the opposite side, and then there it is running on the back of the truss, and everything is nice and concealed all the way down. Now, one thing that you'll see a lot of hacks do that have no business doing electrical is they'll take the shortest point. They'll go from that light and they'll just run that thing straight across right on top of the trusses to that one, and it'll look like a big old pile of doo-doo. Now, maybe these trusses aren't rated for storage up there, but you know everyone is going to stick some things up there. So I personally like to run the wire, even if it's a longer route. I went to a center location that braced right down the middle, and I didn't put any wiring on top of those trusses. That way, if there's something being set up there or moved around, there's less chance of it shorting out. Semis are brutal over here. Damn! I should have called the troopers to shut the road down before I shot this video. This is just ridiculous. So that's a brief idea of how I like to wire pole barns. Like I said, bunch of different ways to do it. If you have any other tips or pointers that you like to do, feel free to add it in the comments. Pole barns are really easy to wire, but if you get the wrong person, they can make your nice new pole barn look like absolute crap. And I think that new EcoFlow Delta 3 is going to be the perfect fit to get this building temporarily powered up. It's going to make the customers very happy. And if they do happen to run out of juice, they could just unplug it, walk it inside their house, plug it in, charge it overnight, bring it out here in the morning. It'll take all of about 5 minutes. So if you want more information, check out their website. It's got all the specs, all the features right there. I will leave all those links in the description. Hopefully they could sustain power here in this building with limited use with the solar panels and not have to take it inside and charge it, but we'll see. Anyways, that's gonna wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.